Warning: Alan and JJ Johnson are not professional comedians. During this program, you will be exposed to unfiltered dad jokes in their most potent and raw form, dads telling them to each other. Watching this video may lead to serious physical harm, including facepalm concussions, head-shaking whiplash, and uncontrollable groaning. Proceed at your own risk.
Hey everybody, I'm Alan.
And I'm JJ.
And this is Two Dads and a Joke. We're here to give you a 6-pack of dad jokes and just a shot of parenting advice. Well, actually, we're giving a lot more than a shot of parenting advice, aren't we? We're like 10 things is what we're doing.
I think so, 10 things. So we'll figure that out.
And so I gotta come up with a new opening line, I guess. So we're this month we're talking about 10 hard realities we want our kids to know. So this might be probably our biggest downer of an episode ever, JJ.
It might be.
But speaking of downers, do you know what's a really big downer?
What's that?
A landslide. You know, when land is coming down the hill. But did you know that I've heard that landslides have a favorite magazine? Do you know what it is?
No, I don't.
Rolling Stone.
I like it, man. I like it. So, hey, anyway, so imagine that you're going to go, walk into a wedding. I like weddings. It's wedding season, right? Everybody's getting
weddings.
Married, things like that. They have no idea what's really about to hit them, So imagine you go into a wedding and there's just this line of people that's just lined up waiting to take a swing at you. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's the punchline. Did that break you?
Oh, that's a good one. I like that one. Oh. The problem with weddings is, did you know my daughter's getting married? I don't know that I told you this. My daughter's getting married in July, so the wedding thing hit home.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of pressure being the parents of the bride on this whole wedding thing. And I think that really leads into our first hard reality, that sometimes people get lucky, so don't compare yourself to others. Why don't you tell me about that hard reality, JJ?
Well, that is true. Sometimes people just get lucky. I think that sometimes when we want to find success in whatever field it is that we're passionate about, you and I are both authors, so, let's just kind of tackle it from that angle, but it could be anything. It could be trying to advance in your workplace, up to senior executive management or something along those lines. And, you kind of look across the field and you think, well, I'm a little more talented than them, or I'm better. Pride sort of is a little bit of it, but the reality is sometimes we can realize when we're better at something than somebody else. But the truth is that, sometimes people get to the positions, sometimes it's hard work. Sometimes it's, they find success because they've been at it for a long time. But then there are other times where the reality is sometimes people just get lucky. They just happen to be in the right place at the right time, doing the right thing, and they break in just at the right moment. It doesn't mean that they're any better than what you do in your field. It just means that, it was just an opportunity. They happen to be there at the right moment. And I think that that's a hard reality to accept sometimes, because our culture is so bent on, putting your mind to it and then you'll find success. And unfortunately, that's not always the case, if that makes sense.
Oh, it's totally right. Well, and it's the comparison bit, right?
Right.
Especially
absolutely.
because you there's a reason. And I'm gonna ask this question: when was the last time you heard a sermon on covetousness?
It's been a long time. Most churches.
I don't know that in my adult life, I've never heard any pastor pull that one out. And so let's talk about covetousness, because that's what this is really about, right?
It really is. It really is. You covet something that somebody else has. Yeah.
Right. And
I think
the whole
pastors,
Bible is that.
Yes, it is, and that's the thing. So,
Right.
When you really think about Cain and Abel, that's where it started.
Right.
I mean, so I mean, I think part of the reason you probably don't hear it from pastors is because most pastors struggle with it. I mean,
Right.
they want their church to look like the other church, over here in this area. And that's not true of all pastors, not all pastors,
Sure.
but I'm saying that some pastors do struggle with that. So I mean, that's really just it's a hard reality to accept.
Well, and not to say that comparison is all bad. Like looking
Right.
at someone else and going, that person is more skilled at the trade than I am. I could learn from them. That's
Exactly.
good comparison. But it's the other
Right.
side of comparing your outcomes to somebody else's, because sometimes you were the lucky one.
Oh,
And I
that's
guess
true.
that's the corollary to this that's been my hard reality is some years at work, because of the way the compensation structure works and what, sometimes I'm lucky, like I'm in sales, I have a quota. Some years I got a good quota, some years I don't have a good quota.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to kind of take that with a grain of salt. That's the risk.
Right.
But it also goes back to then, so what's your work ethic, right? I think our next point is you can play your heart out and do everything right and still lose on a technicality.
That's correct. Yeah, that's true. What was it? I think it was the just recently there was the Wheel of Fortune incident where the guy had the answer, but he used the word "and" at the beginning, and to solve the thing. It was just one of those absent-minded things. He just says "and" to announce it. Well, it was a technicality, and as a result. He ended up losing like thousands and thousands of dollars. And it was one of those things that a lot of the fans complained about. And they probably have a legitimate complaint. I don't watch Wheel of Fortune. I just remember reading about this. And I'm just sitting there like, the guy lost on that, And, sometimes the technicalities that we lose on, they seem silly. And like they shouldn't exist. But sometimes that's like I remember one time I was watching a Detroit Tigers baseball game. I'm a big baseball fan, and a guy was in the 9th inning and of a perfect game. And there's only been like 19, 20 perfect games ever thrown in the history of baseball. And he had it. He had the out, and the pitcher fielded the ball, ran the first, put his foot on first base. Long before the runner ever got there, and they called him safe. And when you watch it on replay, it was clear as day that the umpire got it wrong. Well, the umpire reviewed it after the game, admitted that he missed it, felt terrible, but then Major League Baseball says we can't overturn it. It was a live play. We can't overturn a live play. It's a silly technicality. The guy pitched a perfect game. And something he'll never do again in his life, probably. And because of a silly technicality about the fact that Major League Baseball chooses not to do these things, the guy lost going down into the record books. And that seems trivial, but it is a hard reality in the fact that in life, sometimes there's just going to be a technicality that keeps us from gaining our goals. And it doesn't seem fair, but you have to learn to be ready for it. So
yeah, no, we had that, and our focus here is really helping you raise up your kids. My son is in a robotics team, and we actually had a team do something because of how the things are structured in the robotics stuff. It like being intentionally anti-competitive, like doing stuff that's kind of a dirty trick, is really frowned upon.
Yeah.
Well, in this case, we had a robot that could do this one task. It was a couple phase task, and the other team couldn't do something in that phase. So rather than actually competing in the phase the way they should have, they just basically set their robot up to drive directly forward and block us. Okay, so like they just sat there. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, technically, they should have gotten a like 5 penalty strikes for that, which would have still won us the match, basically.
Yeah.
But the judge only gave him 1 penalty stroke, kind of thing. And so, the kids went and they appealed it. They appealed it a couple times. And they're like, oh, well, we can't redo that. And they were basically, the judges were in such a rush. They called the winner before we got to actually, say, hey, there's a problem here. Like, we were waiting in the penalty box and they already called the winner. And it was a hard reality for my kids that they would not reverse it, even though showing them video evidence that they were blocking us for 25 seconds, that should have been 5, and you only gave them 1. It didn't matter because they had already called the winner. The judges just did it wrong. But what I think for me, what I was most proud of was the fact that my son and the other kids on the team accepted that without having a big fit about it, right? It was like, okay, because at an earlier time, they had been a benefactor of that kind of thing, I mean, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. But I think the bottom line is sometimes you can do your very best and a technicality still is going to blow it out.
Yeah, exactly.
Which I think brings up our next one. The American dream is sometimes more stressful than the simple, quiet life. So tell me about that one, JJ. When I saw that, I'm thinking Hobbiton.
Yeah. We all love to go and just farm. So,
no, I grew up farming. I don't want to just go do that. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't want to farm. I wouldn't mind gardening. I love gardening, but I don't want to farm. Sometimes I think culture, there's a lot of people that spend millions of dollars trying to sell this idea of the American dream to us, as people, as society. Nice nice cars, big houses, perfectly manicured lawns. I'm quoting directly from my Iggy and Oz book. I'm thinking of Whispering Pines, gated communities, things like that. Those are all great, but sometimes they're more stressful to pursue than we think they are, than actually living it. Sometimes there's a lot of responsibilities that come with just being a part of every social circle within your community that you feel like. I think a lot of it is sometimes we seem a little fake, really, in reality, because either one, we're drowning in debt, or two, we're not really doing the things that we enjoy, and we spend more time trying to upkeep the materialistic things that we collect in this world, instead of just enjoying simplicity. My grandmother she was born in 1922, so she would have been 99, but she grew up in the heart of World War II. She was like, just 20 something years old when World War II began. And, her entire life was built around being a homemaker, pretty much, to her 6 kids and to my grandfather. And, tending to her garden, which was like 1,000 square feet. I mean, that was my grandmother's life. And I know it's a different time. It was a different time back then. It's a different time today, And what the thing about her is that she was a woman that would always spend her time in the mornings just reading God's word. She wasn't a deep theologian. She didn't know a lot of deep doctrine. She just loved God and just loved spending time in the Bible. And I always think about when I get busy, when I get stressed, I always think back to my grandmother, because she just she knew the beauty in just slowing down and just sitting there thinking and just enjoying life. And doing what she knew to do best, and that was to serve her family and to tend to her garden and minister to her neighbors. That's what she loved to do. And so I think there's just something to be said for, we live in this instant world where we need instant gratification, whether that's on social media, Instagram. We got to have a certain number of likes or comments or shares or things like that. And I think sometimes it's overwhelming because we tend to think that that's what we should be pursuing. And sometimes I wonder, are we really created for that? And the answer is not really. I mean, we're created to glorify God, plain and simple. And I always think back to my grandmother. That's kind of where my thought process was going with this. What do you think?
Well, I think part of that is what's the point of that dream, right? Like, So here's my stupid example maybe of that is I have always wanted a really nice Mustang.
Yeah.
I have always wanted a really nice Mustang. Like, this is something that I really wanted.
Yeah.
And I got a really good bonus, and I could have, gotten payments and gotten the car of my dreams, like that American dream,
Yeah.
And I always thought of like getting in your convertible and going down Route 66. I don't know. I just had this whole thing right in my head. And even though I could have done all of that because I had a really good year and I could have, gone and gone in some debt, but to your point about debt and made it work, it was like, that's not what I'm going to do. Because it just piles obligation on top of obligation and that sort of stuff. And it gets in the way of, helping my kids with school or paying for this wedding or whatever. And it's that kind of thinking beyond the accumulation of wealth into how can I help other people. And so, we also helped a bunch of people out in the middle of COVID that we wouldn't have been able to otherwise if I'd gone and pursued that dream. I don't know, for some of those people that we were able to help out, it was just a huge blessing for them at the time that it happened. And so I think that's the part is, if that dream isn't about helping others, being connected to people, is it really a dream worth having?
Right.
Yeah. So it's time for a word from our sponsor. Do your kids have wild imaginations, monsters under the bed, ghosts, the boogeyman, and everything in between? What if they came to you one day and said, "My plastic dinosaurs have come to life"? Well, that's exactly what happens to Iggy and his brother Oz in the 2020 Realm Award-winning novel, Iggy and Oz, The Plastic Dinos of Doom. This fast-paced, fun novel is perfect for family reading or your elementary reader's free reading time. Buy Iggy and Oz and The Plastic Dinos of Doom by J.J. Johnson at Amazon.com in paperback, Kindle, and audiobook today. So, JJ, us being authors and all that, creative stuff, I know that you mentioned, I think Lord of the Rings had come up 2 or 3 times now. So I gotta ask you, though, why did the Lonely Mountain look so sad?
Oh. I don't know. Why did the Lonely Mountain look sad?
It has a heart of stone.
That's a good one. I like that one. So, anyway, so we talked about luck just a few minutes ago, and and things like that. So, why is it why is it a bad idea to iron your 4-leaf clover?
Why is it a bad idea to iron your 4-leaf clover?
Because you shouldn't press your luck.
That's a good one. Oh wow! I think we've arrived. And you know what? Yeah, I think those were both actually funny. So there we go. So moving on to item 4 of our 10 hard realities, and it kind of goes back to what we were just talking about. You either manage your money or it manages you.
Yeah. Let's see. Years ago, let's just flash back to when I was 23. I'm 43 now. So 20 years ago, I was walking across campus. I went to Oklahoma Baptist University when I finally got into college. And so they were giving out these free planners if you filled out this, application. Well, I didn't know anything. I was like, well, what is this? Well, it's for a credit card. Oh, all right. Cool. No big deal. I'll take the free planner. All right. The next thing you know, I get a card in the mail. $5,000 credit limit. Now, I'm a college student. All right.
Right.
I didn't know a whole lot about how credit cards worked. I had never really taken personal finance. I'd never really taken any business classes. I didn't know anything about finance charges. What's that? So I went out and I was like, hey, you know what? I can go buy some stuff. And then, I'll just pay it off, and I'm tutoring kids. I'm not making money right now. All right. I'm making very, very little. And I get that, and next thing I know, within a month or two, I'm maxed it out. No big deal.
Oh, wow.
All right, cool. And then I get that first bill in the mail, and I'm like, or the first couple of bills, because it was like delayed payments for the first 3 months, and so I didn't see it.
Even worse.
Yeah, I didn't see a payment until until I'd already maxed it out, and I get the first payment. And I'm like, this is more money than I make in a month. I'm calling my mom. I'm like, what am I going to do? She's like, well, I guess you gotta go get a job, and I'm taking, full-time classes. And so I took a job as a night security guard at one of the girls' dorms. And I probably had the best grades in my semester because I worked all night from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. But that entire paycheck, all that, went to try and pay that credit card off.
Wow.
And I was not working to make money to save or to spend on things I really needed. I was working to pay off something for a bunch of purchases that were just frivolous, totally just, completely, I needed a new pair of shoes. Not really. I went and bought them, so, and then I learned about finance charges and realized that, you know what? Half of my payment isn't even going to my payments, because I would sit there and I'd be like, so manage your money, because if you don't and you're not careful, it could eventually manage you. So
yeah, no, and that your story's spot on for me too. We did really bad job when we first got married of managing that. Ended up in a bunch of debt. Slowly worked our way out of it. I ended up driving the same car from 1996 till 2012. Because it was, that was one of the first things we paid off when we started paying it off.
Right.
And then drove the same car from 2012 till 2021 or 2020, Yeah. Because again, it's like if it's paid for, we're just driving it till it's in the dirt kind of thing. But that's part of that, right? Is I don't have the cash flow to sit there and go, yeah, I'm okay taking on these payments, or I'm okay doing this. Because that locks you in, right? That money now is managing you, saying, "Hey, this thing I bought, or this thing I've taken on as a obligation, it's got you locked in." So I think that was hard. Like, us learning that as a couple was a really hard lesson.
Right.
And then the last one in this mini episode here is number 5. The higher you get up the ladder, the more accountability you need, but the less you get.
Right.
So let's talk about that one.
Well, for me, I started at the bottom in my company, and going back to luck, our very first one, I've been lucky. God has opened a lot of doors in my business for me to advance that should not have been open. I just kind of look back and I can kind of see God's hand in everything. But now that I'm in senior management for a marketing company, I work with a bunch of blue collar guys. So I love my job. I love getting up and walking out there, and it's part production, manufacturing, part office area. And as I get to a point to where I'm the one making a lot of decisions, and our president and executive VP are expecting me to deliver the results, but yet they're off having to do their own things in the company. They're in a different city, as a matter of fact. And there are a lot of days where I just want to be lazy, I just don't want to do anything, I could sit in my office and just, play on social media all day if I wanted to, because there's nobody there to actually make me get up and, check on things and things like that. So there's a lot of times you get up there to that point where you're kind of the guy, or the person that's in charge, and then next thing you know, you don't have a lot of accountability. You have to learn to maintain your own accountability. You have to learn to maintain your own management. And I've learned that it's easy to manage other people. It's very difficult to learn to manage yourself properly. So.
Oh yeah, I totally agree with that, and I think that's the challenge as because they're, to a certain extent, you end up becoming peerless, right? Like in your own company, you're the only person at that level doing that job, right?
Exactly.
Even if you're the vice president of marketing, whatever, doing whatever, there's another vice president of sales that might be your peer over here, but their job is so different.
Right.
There's no double checks. There's no looking at your job versus their job unless you've got some interaction. They don't know that you're not necessarily delivering on your whole promise, so to speak. And so it's hard finding peers that can double check your work. It's also hard that your leaders are expecting you to just be above reproach and do the right thing. And I think, when we look at a lot of the, I don't know, the problems that we see popping up in social media with major figures, quote, falling,
right,
it's largely because they were at the top of their game, whatever that game may be, and they lacked the external accountability to say, dude, you're out of line, right? And early in whatever way they went out of line, right? Like if they'd had good accountability early. I think that was one of the things. I once read Billy Graham's 50 Secrets of Leadership or something like that. And one of the first things that happened in his ministry was he signed an accountability statement with the three others that were the core to that ministry. And, they had regular meetings about everything they were doing, and they had this code of conduct that they all checked in with each other on. And that's why, to this day, Billy Graham still has a positive legacy himself personally. And it's largely because when he got to that height of sort of popularity in the world, so to speak, he was having regular accountability regardless of that. And so I think that's a huge lesson that we all need to be thinking of, especially as we go into, career thoughts and moving up. I, at one time, JJ, I thought about a real career change. I was thinking about becoming an archaeologist.
That's an interesting change of careers. Okay, go ahead.
After I looked into it, I realized my career would end in ruins.
So last night I had a weird dream. All right, you have those dreams where you think you're running from something, you just can't run, or something like that. Mm-hmm. You just feel slow. So I had this dream that I weighed less than 1,000th of a gram. And you know what I was like? Yeah, I woke up and I was like, OMG.
Oh, that was great. Well, everybody, this has been part 1 of 10 hard things, hard realities, and we'll catch you next time with the next 5. See ya.
See ya.